Hi, my name's Peter Fowler from Shepparton in Victoria, and the Mercedes-Benz is one of the 5 or so sports sedans that I built between 1970 and 1990, my 20 years in motorsport, and we're just so pleased to see it out and on show, and Simon doing such a good job with it, because unfortunately a lot of the sports sedans at the time have disappeared. And in days of old there were no historic sports sedans. You built your new car out of your old car. You made a new body shell and improved a few things and used all the good bits. And so that's what happened to lots of the cars, and so they went away. And fortunately for us, this car was sold on by Bryan, and then by Bryan Thompson, who I built it for. It was sold on, and it went to New Zealand, and then it came up for sale, and fortunately for the Motorsport Australia and us personally, Simon bought it and has restored it to its glory. And you know, it's a delight to see it, and it brings back old memories, because it's 40 years since I built the car. At the time, Bryan had retired from motorsport because he'd bought a big property out of Shepparton, and I started an automotive service business and servicing all the exotic European cars, Alphas and BMs and Jags and Ferraris, and but the motorsport bug was still there, and I kept dreaming up the right way to build it. And I selected at the time a Mercedes shell because I thought, corporate board wise, it might be a good area to bring some support, because I was only the mechanic builder, small 2-man businessman, and we had no real finance. And anyway, I designed it and built it, and we managed to run it for 2 years with help from the city of Shepparton. And John Bowe drove it for the first year. I built it for John. I'd been looking after Brad Jones's Formula Ford, and at 18-year-old I put Brad in it, and he never looked back. And then we ran out of dough, of course, and retired the car at the time. At the time we had our 4-valve Chev engine in it that Bryan and I built, or had built, and after 2 years it just didn't have enough grunt. And so Bryan took over the whole car, the whole project then. He was ready to come out of retirement, and we built a twin turbo Chev engine, and that's what ran in it for the next probably 7 or 8 years. And we had all sorts of development issues there, but in the 80s, when we were running, the turbo development was nothing like what it is now, and it would be a whole different ball game now. But they changed the sports sedan rules early 80s to combine with GT cars, Porsches, Lambos, the rest, and that allowed us freedom of bodywork, and we created the GT bodywork for this, which is totally different. And in lots of cases, Bryan and I wish we'd kept the original GT bodywork for it. But anyway, that didn't happen, and we won the 1985 Australian GT Championship. We beat Porsches, we beat Lamborghinis, we beat everything that came along, and we're very proud of that. Any engineer knows that most of you, or a lot of your good ideas, come in the middle of the night, and the real trick is to remember them in the morning. That's the thing. Just not lose sleep and then wake up in the morning and you can't remember what it was all about. But look, in seriousness, it's a heart thing. You can't create these things out of it's like anyone who designs and builds anything. It's got to come from your heart, and a huge amount of personal commitment to this and to other cars that we built, and it's just the way it is. We're always a small team. We only 3 or 4 crew at the most, and certainly only 1 or 2 paid. And but Bryan's had a big heart, and he was motor racing all his life, and he was happy to put money into the sport where we could, and my job was to build the car, and his was to do the best we could with what we could afford. No, well, the 85, that was an Australian championship, and Bryan had raced for all his life, and it was a great reward. Look, we've done a million other things, but that's the standout thing, certainly with this car. It's there, and now to see it in this guise, and it out there, and Simon driving it well, and my heart's right out there with it. I had a call from Bryan earlier today. How's it going? What's happening? Because he was invited to come over this weekend, but they felt it was too big a trip at the moment. They'd just moved house and a few other things, and Bryan's 87 now and doing pretty well, but you do slow down a little bit. 100%. And but he was on the phone. What's happening? So when we're finished here, I've got to go and ring him and report in, and tell him all the ins and outs and who's and ahs. And he'll be delighted. So many times, so many good sports sedans have faded away and disappeared. And the fact that Simon has bought a number of these cars and put money into restoring them and preserving them, it's pretty special.
I think so. We're down the back straight. We can use a bit of zoom. moment.